The medical field is working hard to find cures for diseases, and a determined doctor named Isabel Ruben leads a special team to slow down aging. They have a modern facility and offer the latest treatments, attracting wealthy individuals who want to look younger. Mia, the wife of the company's owner, discovers a hidden truth about the cure. Mia loves her horse and cherishes the carrot she feeds it. They have a special bond and understand each other well. However, she starts to wonder if she's taking away her horse's freedom. That evening, she questions herself while naked in bed with her husband, Thomas. Sadly, he rejects her advances. Feeling rejected, Mia goes downstairs and opens a letter from Dr. Isabel Ruben, Thomas's business partner. She sees a close-up photo of the letters 14K burned into what looks like human skin. The next day, Thomas watches a video interview with Isabel, where she talks about a medical treatment called Resurrecta that restores youth. She also mentions their plans for a state-of-the-art facility. The ambitious doctor explains that currently, most of their clients are men because of their unique biological traits. However, she believes that in the future, the treatment can be used by women like herself who have complex biological compositions. The interviewer challenges Isabel by asking provocative questions about the treatment's effectiveness and its moral implications. However, Isabel counters by emphasizing that aging is like a sickness that needs a cure. Afterwards, Thomas calls Isabel to discuss the matter further. Meanwhile, Mia bumps into Nika, a neighbor's nanny, who is taking care of a baby. Isabel joins them and compliments the beautiful baby and Nika's lovely hair. While touching Nika's hair, Isabel accidentally gets her ring tangled in it. She discreetly pulls out a few strands and hides them in her pocket while trying to free her hand. Mia guides Isabel to their house, and they talk about Mia's equestrian skills, which make her physically fit for conceiving a child. Their conversation is interrupted by Thomas opening the door. Thomas confronts Isabel, reminding her that the project should remain a secret until they have enough funds to support the facilities. Isabel argues that their goal is to be pioneers in this medical treatment, but Thomas believes they are still in the experimental phase. To convince him, Isabel shows Thomas pictures of a male client named Peter taken a year ago and compares them to his current photo, where he looks much younger. This surprises Thomas, and Isabel stands her ground, saying that rich people don't care about rules and regulations. Thomas, as the owner of the business, asserts his authority and firmly instructs the doctor not to take any actions without his approval. Isabel reluctantly agrees to his demands. Before leaving, Isabel goes up to Mia and compliments her. Mia sarcastically suggests that the doctor should share that with Thomas because he would definitely listen to her. The older woman gives Mia advice on how to get her husband's attention. That night, Mia dresses up nicely, which captivates her husband and goes according to plan. Their intimacy becomes more intense, but suddenly he turns away from Mia, leaving her upset. He explains that he can't give her what she wants because he's unable to have children, which makes Mia even more upset. So she walks out. Meanwhile, Nika is on her way home when a man accidentally bumps into her. She continues walking, but after a few steps, she falls to the ground, unable to move. Moments later, a small truck stops beside her and forcefully takes her inside. She tries to stay awake and overhears two men talking about the medicine they used on her, which is actually meant for cows as an anesthetic. Then Nika loses consciousness as one of the men heats up a rod. Meanwhile, Mia returns to the room, and the couple makes up by hugging each other. On the other hand, Nika wakes up and hears the strangers arguing about an unexpected obstacle. She seizes the opportunity to push the door open and roll out of the vehicle. She hides behind the bushes as the truck drives away. The next day, Isabel meets with a new client named Johansson who wants to look younger. Isabel asks the man to sign a document to keep the procedure confidential. Afterwards, the doctor presents the client's portfolios to demonstrate the treatment's effectiveness. Then she writes down the amount the man needs to pay in cryptocurrency. They immediately begin preparations, such as collecting sperm samples, taking a mouth swab, and drawing blood. The patient asks more questions about the treatment, but the doctor dismisses him. The man expresses discomfort about being kept in the dark, so Isabel escorts him out. On the other hand, Thomas prepares his breakfast smoothie. Mia questions the quality of the supplements they produce in their factory, noting that the labeling is incorrect since her husband is a veterinarian, not a medical doctor. He challenges Mia by asking her to guess Isabel's age. She guesses around 40, but Thomas reveals that she is actually 61, shocking Mia. Suddenly, someone knocks on their door, and Mia opens it to find Nika, who is disheveled and bloody. Thomas immediately notices the burned mark with D17 on her shoulder, which worries him. Mia tells him to get a towel, but instead he makes a phone call. Mia has to raise her voice to get him to bring the towel. The question comforts her, but Thomas insists on taking Nika to the hospital, so Mia convinces the nanny to go with him. As the sun sets, Mia becomes increasingly worried, so she sends a voice message to her husband, urging him to return soon. However, that evening, Thomas still hasn't come back, so she calls the nearest hospitals, but none have admitted anyone named Nika. Meanwhile, Thomas's car finally stops outside a deserted-looking building. The door suddenly opens, and the man who took Nika yesterday forcefully drags her inside. Thomas is surprised to see the woman being dragged, but doesn't do anything to help her. Feeling anxious, Mia opens Thomas's computer to track his phone's location. Just in time, she receives a message from her husband, informing her that Nika is in the hospital. Realizing that his location doesn't match the message, she quickly grabs her car keys. On the other hand, Thomas enters the building to find Isabel. He confronts her about the man who took Nika. The doctor explains that he is a caretaker she hired, known as Dog, and his assistant is called Pig. Thomas clarifies that he thought the woman went willingly, and Isabel says that it's not possible. However, she assures him that it's just a temporary situation. Thomas expresses sympathy for the women. Instead of responding, Isabel shows Thomas a picture of a woman named Ellie on her computer. Seeing the picture, Thomas feels guilty, and Isabel comforts him by caressing his shoulders and whispering affectionately that she'll help him through this. Suddenly, Thomas stands up abruptly and leaves the room while the doctor yells at him not to interfere with the project. As Thomas exits the facility, Mia arrives. She enters a rundown building, and while walking around, the floor suddenly collapses. She manages to save herself and continues her investigation of the place. Mia discovers the supplements produced by her husband's company. Soon after, she hears a woman crying and follows the sound. She finds a woman tied to a table, and Dog mercilessly electrocutes her. Suddenly, Pig appears behind Mia. However, she fights back against the older man and tries to escape. Unfortunately, she trips and falls. The man smirks at her, but as she turns around, Dog knocks her unconscious. Mia regains consciousness and finds herself being dragged by Dog into a locked room. After some time, Thomas returns home and realizes that Mia has found his location. He calls Isabel, who confirms that Mia is there. With this information, Thomas heads back to the facility. Meanwhile, Dog commands Mia to change clothes in front of him. She bravely refuses at first, but soon realizes that the caretaker means business. Out of fear, Mia complies and changes her clothes. When she sees the door open, she attempts to escape. However, Dog catches her, ties her arms, puts duct tape on her mouth, and extracts her blood. The man heats up a metal rod and burns Mia's shoulders, branding her with the mark 34A. He then pours his urine on the wound, causing her immense pain. On the other hand, Thomas finally arrives at the facility, desperately searching for Mia. He comes across a caretaker and tells him that Mia is different from the others. The caretaker says that a test will determine that. Soon after, he receives a call from Isabel instructing him to let Thomas see Mia for 5 minutes. When the couple meets, Mia expresses anger towards her husband but soon breaks down. Instead of rescuing her, Thomas warns Mia not to try escaping on her own as it could be dangerous, promising to find a way to get her out soon. With that, he leaves Mia, who sobs in despair. Meanwhile, the doctor calmly calls Thomas from the hallway and warns him not to interfere or Mia might get hurt. She takes away his phone and orders him not to leave the building. In the meantime, Mia searches the room for anything that could be useful. Suddenly, an alarm goes off as Nika tries to escape and ends up outside Mia's room, seeking help. Pig appears behind Nika and brutally hits her head with a metal bar. The two caretakers casually clean up the scene, leaving Mia in shock. At the same time, Isabel meets with Johansson again. He is excited to undergo the treatment after witnessing another man who looks 20 years younger because of it. Isabel seizes the opportunity and raises the price by 50%. The wealthy man eagerly accepts. Afterward, the doctor continues her research with one of the women, assisted by Dog. She warns the caretaker not to have any inappropriate desires towards the subjects, especially Mia, as she is crucial to their plans. Meanwhile, Thomas sneaks to Mia's door and finally unlocks it. After several attempts, the couple is reunited. Mia recalls the picture of 14K and asks Thomas who she is. He confesses that the girl's name is Ellie, whom he met at a party he and Isabel attended 6 months ago. The doctor introduced her, claiming she was his type. Thomas mentions that everything became blurry, but he remembers Ellie expressing a desire to be tied up. The next thing he knew, she was lifeless on the bed.
As Thomas looked out the window, the doctor confirmed that Ellie was gone.
Mia realizes that she won't be able to escape due to the secret between Isabel and Thomas. Later on, her husband returns to his room, leaving Mia alone. A few moments later, Isabel calls Thomas and introduces him to their new addition to the facility, the biobag. She explains that they can grow embryos by purchasing ovaries from overseas, although there are still some issues to be resolved by adding the client's DNA. Thomas jokingly remarks that the doctor can live for 180 years, to which she responds that finding her perfect match has been challenging. Isabel cunningly convinces her business partner that they can achieve their goals, particularly in terms of financial gain. Shortly after, Thomas forcefully brings Mia to where Isabel, Dog, and Pig are. He states that she knows too much and needs to be dealt with. Mia sobs in agony as her husband gives in to Isabel's demands.
After a brief argument about who will eliminate Mia, Thomas wins as he wants to handle it himself. He takes a knife and escorts Mia out.
In the hallway, Thomas frees her to escape, but the caretakers spot them.
The chase begins, and Thomas tries to block their pursuers, but Pig attacks him. He loses consciousness.
Meanwhile, Mia searches for a car, but it doesn't start. Eventually, Dog captures her again.
In Isabel's office, Pig informs her that they have found a DNA match, which is Mia. Dog prepares to eliminate Mia when Pig arrives to take her for the procedure. Mia is rendered unconscious once again and wakes up tied to an operating table.
The doctor calmly examines her ovaries in search of a healthy egg.
Mia silently weeps as the doctor implants a client's seed into the egg.
Afterward, the doctor smiles with satisfaction, and Dog takes Mia to her new cell where she encounters other women.
Some of them are pregnant, including Ellie, who is alive.
In this cell, Mia meets Julie, who is also pregnant.
Julie asks her about the possibility of escape.
Another woman named Helena, crying in pain in the adjacent cell, warns them to stay quiet. Ellie speaks to Mia and reveals that her husband believes she was dead. Ellie shares that she was deceived by Isabel, who promised her release if she followed a plan.
Dog hears the commotion and finds Helena in distress.
Helena explains that she has a toothache, and the heartless man pulls it out with pliers.
When Helena's sobs continue, he staples her mouth shut to silence her. Ellie cannot bear witnessing this, so she insults Dog.
He goes to her cell and assaults her, despite her being pregnant, causing her water to break.
Dog panics and rushes to inform Isabel.
Thankfully, the baby is born healthy, but Ellie doesn't even get a chance to hold her child as the doctor takes the infant away. After a few hours, the caretaker arrives with some supplies.
Mia purposely urinates on the floor, infuriating him. He enters the cell, and Mia seizes the opportunity to fight back.
Although overpowered, Mia manages to grab the knife from the caretaker's pocket and stabs him.
Unfortunately, he retaliates by strangling her. Gasping for breath, Julie grabs the knife from Dog's side and stabs him in the back, saving Mia's life.
The woman shouts at Mia to get the keys, and she successfully frees the other women. Julie, Ellie, Mia, and the quiet woman all venture out to find the baby. They come across a room with a terrible smell, but when Mia opens it, she vomits in disgust. They hear a baby crying and rush towards the sound.
Meanwhile, Helena approaches the injured dog on the floor.
She cradles him and praises his strength.
At the same time, Thomas regains consciousness and looks for weapons and keys.
He searches for Mia and unlocks one of the cells. Inside, he finds two other women, gives them the key, and instructs them to free the rest. In the laboratory, Isabel, assisted by Pig, slowly cuts the baby's back as the infant cries in pain.
Ellie and the others arrive just in time before the doctor dissects the baby.
However, they halt their attack when Isabel threatens to harm the infant. Taking advantage of the distraction, the doctor escapes while Pig blocks the women. Nevertheless, the four women fiercely fight against Pig. Despite his strength, Mia grabs a chain from the wall and wraps it around Pig's neck. She instructs the others to pull both ends, and finally, the man meets his end.
Ellie finds her baby left on a counter and embraces the child tightly, providing comfort.
Mia immediately begins searching for Isabel, but Dog arrives, searching for her as well.
Mia hides in a locker to avoid him.
However, the deranged man spots her hiding place.
Suddenly, Thomas calls out to Mia.
Dog closes the locker and conceals himself while Thomas looks for his wife. The caretaker strangles Thomas with a barbed wire, and the two men fight for their lives. Thomas is clearly losing, but Mia manages to escape the locker and grabs the electric taser that Thomas drops. She uses it to shock Dog, knocking him unconscious.
Meanwhile, Isabel heads to her lab to gather DNA samples before attempting to flee.
As she hurries out of the facility, she encounters the liberated women who fiercely attack her, destroying her precious test tubes. After some time, Dog regains consciousness, tied up in a metal compartment, while Isabel is restrained to a pole. The caretaker tries to maintain his pride by shouting at the women surrounding him. Mia's comrade, the quiet woman, unexpectedly stands over him and urinates on him, just as he had done to them. The women mockingly laugh, and some of them approach to beat him with a metal pole. Amidst the women's triumphant cries, Helena unties Isabel and tells her to help Dog. The doctor grabs a screwdriver nearby, but her victims quickly surround her. Knowing there is no escape, she stabs herself in the heart, collapsing on the floor. Everyone becomes quiet. Some people cry while others let out sighs of relief as their nightmare finally comes to an end. Soon after, the police and rescue teams arrive. Afterwards, Mia mentions that the events were kept hidden, as there is no record of any client's name, and only photos of powerful men were found. No one attempts to uncover the truth. She also testifies that her husband is innocent. Mia and Thomas return to their peaceful life, and their love for each other grows deeper. They overcome the challenges they face. In addition, Thomas proves himself to be a changed person when he accepts Nika, Mia's baby. Thank you for watching our recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.